Hello everyone, and welcome to a new video. This video is very self-indulgent and very random, and it is all about the adventures of turning my hair this delightful shade of green, / the adventures of ruining my hair depending on who you ask and how much you like the shade of green. This process has been going on for about 6 months, and oh, what a process it has been. It's involved many days of me standing in my bathroom being absolutely terrified that I'm going to give myself chemical burns and all of my hair is going to fall off in the process of using bleach. So I have to bleach my hair tonight and I am terrified. I am scared that all of my hair is going to fall out in clumps. Yeah, I'm not kidding. That footage is from like 3 days ago, and even though I bleached my hair like 5 times in the past 6 months, I still have a healthy amount of respect for it and a healthy amount of fear regarding it as well. And as all good YouTubers, I am here to monetize my emotions, and that includes fear. I'm kidding. I actually want to make this video because I was really inspired throughout this entire process by watching other people's videos about their hair. And I feel like these videos fall into 3 categories. They're the ones that are informative for the right reasons and teach you a lot of stuff. There are ones that are informative for the wrong reasons, where something goes horribly wrong and it teaches you what not to do. And then there are the ones that are just plain inspirational and you look at and it makes you want to do bad things to your hair to have it look that good. I'm not sure which category this video will fall into, but hopefully it will be entertaining. Now this story starts in the middle of 2020 when I decided to bleach my hair. But before I get into that story, the main story, I feel like I need to give you some hair history. So between the ages of 14 and 18, I used a whole bunch of different box dyes on my hair to get it to be this burgundy-ish, reddish, purpley color. But eventually I was just tired of the expense and I slowly chopped off all of the dyed and damaged hair. And eventually I was left with all my natural colored hair, which is a light brownish, mousy-ish, blondish color. I'm quite fond of my natural hair color, but at the end of 2019, I was feeling down on myself and I wanted a change, and I decided to dye it a burgundy color. And I really liked how this looked, so much so that I kept up with it for the first 6 months or so of 2020. Eventually I got bored and I decided to dye it this navy blue color, which I really liked, except for the fact that it would not stick to the top inch of my hair. Now I've been using direct deposit dyes, which don't damage your hair, but they also don't penetrate your hair. They just sit on the surface. And how well they stick to the surface depends on the condition of your hair. So if your hair is really healthy and really smooth, it's a much more difficult surface for it to stick to than more porous and damaged hair. And the hair that's been on my head longer has been through more and is more damaged, so the dye held much better in the ends of my hair than the roots. The roots are also the part that I wash most frequently and most thoroughly because that's where the grease builds up. So the color would fade much faster at the top of my head and would fade pretty much completely from my roots very, very quickly. And I thought it looked terrible having this really dark color on the ends of my hair and then a 1 or 2 inch band of a really lightish blondish brown color. I got so fed up with this that I decided to dye it back to red with a color that I knew had pretty good root coverage. That takes us to the middle of 2020, and this is the base I was starting out with when I decided to bleach my hair. Which doesn't sound like a big deal, but was a big deal to me as someone who is absolutely terrified of bleach. I think we've already established that. I thought this would be the solution to all of my problems. I could dye my roots a darker color or have them be my natural color, and then have the ends be something really bold and vibrant. And the bonus thing about only bleaching the ends of my hair is that if they became brittle or mushy and fell off, then I would still have lots of hair left. And I also wouldn't have to bring it anywhere near my scalp where I could potentially give myself chemical burn. This was an impulsive decision, but it was an impulsive decision in the middle of the pandemic. So I ordered a few Manic Panic box kits on Amazon, and while I waited for those to arrive, I did more research. I decided that instead of just doing the bottom couple inches of my hair, I could do a balayage situation and bring it up a lot higher, but bring it up to kind of an even point so it would look more natural and not just be a straight line of bleach in my hair. And as I watched more and more videos on this process, I realized I was going to need more bleach than was included in the Manic Panic box kits. So I ended up ordering 20 and 30 volume developer from Sally's, as well as a rebonding treatment and a big bucket of bleach powder. And while I waited for that to arrive, I decided to test the integrity of my hair and how light it would get by doing a test strand at the nape of my neck. I really thoroughly coated the hair, I left it on there for 30 minutes, I wrapped it in tin foil, I rinsed it out, and the hair looked exactly the same. And this is when I realized that I had so much direct deposit dye, pigment, whatever you want to call it, built up on the ends of my hair that the bleach literally couldn't eat through it. So I had to go about removing that pigment before I could consider bleaching my hair if I actually wanted it to lighten at all. So I have my bowls, I have my brush, I have my various caps, and there's the vitamin C powder. So I've seen a lot of people just crush up pills to do this, but it seemed to make way more sense to me to just order the powder itself. So that's what I did. Then I have this dandruff shampoo. I'm gonna mix these 2 guys together into a paste and then apply it all over my head. I think that is pretty evenly coated. I did go all the way up to the root just because I think I'm gonna have to do this several times. and I don't have nearly as much pigment on my roots as I do on the ends. I will say this feels very unpleasant. It's still quite chunky even though the powder itself is pretty fine. I'll leave it on for like half an hour and then rinse it out and potentially rinse and repeat. Since I didn't dry my hair in between, it was hard to tell if there was any difference after the first round. I've just gone ahead and done another batch. I rinsed it out and then put it back on again. And I'm going to leave this one on for at least half an hour. So a big part of the reason I've been doing these vitamin C treatments is because when I started out, I did a strand test at the back of my neck to see how light my hair would lighten. It didn't lighten very much at all. It basically turned the color of my roots, which is significantly lighter than my ends, as you can see, but nowhere near light enough to put a pale color over top of it. So I just did another bleach test after doing the 2 vitamin C tests, and in person it looks a little bit lighter, but it's still not nearly as light as it needs to be. However, after the vitamin C treatments, the test I did at the back of my head at the beginning has lightened up substantially. So this started out being the color of my roots, and I'm backlit so you can't really tell, but it's now almost like a silvery color. So I was hoping based off of that if I tried bleaching it again, it would turn that color without the vitamin C treatments on top of it, but evidently not. So I'm going to do a few more of the vitamin C baths today. It probably looks exactly the same on camera as it did yesterday, but I do notice a subtle difference. And if I lift the hair up to light, you can sort of actually see it on camera too. Instead of being a dark blue color like it was before, now it's showing up more of like a pale purple. So I think that's a good sign, and hopefully doing a few more of these shampoo vitamin C baths will make a bigger difference, and I can get one step closer to being able to bleach all of it and end up with a light color. So as I said in that clip, at this point the test strand I'd originally done had gotten really, really light. So it seems like it had lightened the hair, it was just still coated with all of those semi-permanent pigments. So I did a whole bunch more of these treatments over the next couple of days. At this point I felt like I'd gotten as much of the pigment out as I reasonably could, and I was going to move on to bleaching my hair. So I watched a whole bunch of videos, and I ended up coming across this one by The Life of Hair, which made the process look really simple and not very scary at all. It was a tutorial style video, and it consisted of parting the hair into quadrants and then sectioning it off with rubber bands that are really close to the scalp. He brought the bleach all the way up to the rubber bands and really thoroughly coated the hair and then wrapped it in tin foil. I really liked the idea of this because it didn't involve freehand painting or sectioning where I felt like I might miss pieces. It also meant you have this rubber band stopping you from actually getting it on your roots or getting it on your scalp. So this seemed like the method for me. And the way this works is that you're over directing the hair to these points, and you're bleaching it all to the same point, but when you remove that rubber band, the hair falls in a different pattern, and the bleach will be layered so you won't end up with a single straight line. This just seemed very doable to me, so I decided I would do it. I sectioned my hair roughly at first using scrunchies, and then I used those little plastic bands that you can get for your hair. These kept snapping on me, so I ultimately had to use cloth hairbands that I had to cut out of my hair at the end, so I ended up sacrificing like 20 of these, but I think it was for a worthwhile venture. Then I mixed up my bleach, which was a mixture of 30 volume developer and Wella bleach powder, and I added a rebonding treatment to this too, but I didn't have the right quantity of rebonding treatments for the quantity of bleach, so it probably didn't make any difference. And I mixed up a ton of bleach with a 2:1 developer powder ratio. There was so much that I actually had to get another bowl out to thoroughly mix it all, but I'm not mad about this because in every video I've seen, the #1 reason it turns out badly is because they don't have enough bleach and they don't apply enough bleach to the hair, and I was not about to make that mistake. And I just started slathering it on, starting with the backmost sections. I put on a ton of bleach. I don't know if you can really tell in the video, but I really tried to thoroughly saturate every single hair in each section because the sections themselves were quite large. And then I wrapped each piece with foil, sort of sloppily, but the guy in the video said it was okay if it was sloppy, so I hoped it would turn out anyway. Once my hair was in the ponytails and in the foil, it was huge. There was no way I could put a processing cap on there, so I just sort of awkwardly stood around my bathroom for half an hour with this giant tinfoil helmet of sorts going on. And as soon as I finished applying all of the bleach, I removed the tinfoil on the backmost sections I had applied the bleach to first, because I didn't want those to process faster than the rest of the hair. After this had processed for half an hour, I rinsed it out of my hair, and I shampooed several times to get rid of any bleach residue, and I did a deep conditioning treatment. And after that, this is what my hair looked like. It was not really what I wanted. I had hoped my hair was going to lighten a lot more than it did, but once again, I had so much built up pigment on my hair that I wasn't expecting it to be bright blonde right off the back. Instead of bleaching it again, I decided to do some more vitamin C treatments because I'd had so much luck with those removing pigment from my pre-bleached test strand. And these made a world of difference. They worked so much faster after I had bleached bleach the hair, and after about 4 of these, this is what my hair ended up looking like. At this point, my hair didn't really feel damaged, and that test strand I did at the beginning, which had now been bleached twice, was still holding on, so I figured I could bleach the rest of my hair again without losing too much of its structural integrity. But I didn't want to push it and do a full double process, so I decided to do a bleach bath, and I used a mixture of dandruff shampoo, 30 volume developer, and bleach powder, equal parts of each, and applied this to damp hair. I did section my hair, but I didn't do the proper sections that I did earlier, and I also brought the bleach up a little bit higher. I figured since the shampoo and the water had diluted it, it wasn't going to lighten as quickly or as much, so it was okay to bring it up a little bit higher, and that might actually just contribute to having a nice gradient sort of effect. After this was done, I put it in a processing cap, and I was going to leave it in for a half hour, but after about 20 minutes, it got really hot to the touch, and I started getting really worried, so I ended up rinsing it all out. The top part of my hair was still a relatively dingy, darkish greenish color, but the under part had lightened a lot more, and the portions near my roots had lightened a lot more too. So I have bleached my hair again. I just did a bleach bath, so it was 30 volume developer mixed with equal parts developer, bleach powder, and shampoo, or approximately equal parts. I just did it by eye. This is what I've ended up with. So it's quite a bit lighter, but it's still very green. So to counteract the green and end up with purple, instead of using purple dye on my ends and it turning brown, because then like all the primary colors would be in it, I'm going to use pink mixed with a little bit of purple and conditioner, so it'll be really diluted. Then on my mids, I'm going to use a kind of reddish purple. And for the roots, I'm going to be using primarily blue, and this is Mystic from Lime Crime, with a little bit of purple haze in there as well. So I applied the blue to my roots first, and I applied the pink to my ends, and then I went in with the purple dye mixture to kind of merge the two colors together. I've never used multiple colors on my hair before, so this was a little bit scary, but I felt like I did a pretty decent job blending it all together. I decided to carry on the adventure and the transformation, and I had my dad cut about 1.5 inches length off the back of my hair, and then I evened out the front, and I also decided to give myself bangs. I was so sick of hair falling in my face, so I decided to cut my hair so it would permanently be in my face, but be less annoying, I guess. And so far it's worked. I actually really like them. I think they're cute, I think they're flattering, and I've gotten a lot better at styling them as the months have passed. Unfortunately, the hair dye was not as successful as the haircut. It looked really pretty in some lights, but in others it looked very grayish and patchy and uneven. I'm not sure if this was because of my application or because of the dyes I mixed together or what, but I just did not like it. I immediately started trying to fade that out by washing my hair with hot water and dandruff shampoo. Here you can see it on the day that I decided to bleach some more highlights in my hair and try and dye it again. And by dye some highlights into my hair, I mean that there were some chunks that just didn't seem to lighten as much as the rest, especially on that top layer. I also had my hair in a middle part when I was bleaching it initially, and when I parted my hair on the side the way I normally do, there were just some parts that seemed like they needed to be lighter to frame my face nicely. I also wanted my bangs in general to be brighter. So I used those little tiny rubber bands to section off the various pieces that I thought needed to be brighter, and then I applied bleach to those, and I stuck them in foils, and I left it on for about 15 minutes. I rinsed the bleach out with dandruff shampoo and really thoroughly washed all of my hair because I wanted it to be nice and clean for the next step, which was applying direct deposit dyes. Because for direct deposit dyes, since they just sit on the surface of your hair, you want your hair to be nice and clean so then you can get as close to the surface as possible. And this time around, I decided to use a different brand and different color. I used the colors Aurora and Juniper from Lunar Tides, and these are both shades of green. I used a 3:1 ratio of Juniper and Aurora on my roots, and then I used a 3:1 ratio of Aurora and Juniper on my ends. I figured these would be formulated to go over freshly bleached hair, which is usually more of a yellow or orangey hue. So I thought they would have a lot of blue pigment in them to cover that, and I would end up with a really pretty sort of turquoisey colored hair. But no, they were bright green, and they turned my hair bright green. But I actually absolutely loved it. I thought this color was so fun. It was so vibrant. Every time I looked in the mirror, it just made me smile because it was so cheerful. I also really enjoyed these dyes. They have a much more liquidy texture than any I've used before, and they stained a lot less than others I've used before. They also seem to have lasted really well. Here's some footage from about 2 weeks after I dyed it, and you can see how bold and vibrant it is. Now, as much as I love this color, I didn't love how my hair looked. As great as Lunar Tides is, it doesn't stick to the roots nearly as well as Arctic Fox or Lime Crime or Manic Panic or any of the other brands I've used before. It really didn't stick to the hair that hadn't been bleached at all. So now my roots were darker than the rest of my hair, which is what I wanted all along, but it just looked really harsh and I really didn't like it. So even though I was terrified, I decided that I was going to bleach my roots. And looking back on this, I wish I'd just done this from the beginning. It would have been so much easier if I tried to bleach all of my hair at once instead of going through and painting each section, because each section had the bleach ending at a different point because how it was over directed and bleached initially. So it was a pain in the butt, and I still think I ended up missing spots, but I did my best to go through and bleach all of my roots, so all of my hair would be porous enough for the dye to stick to. I ended up putting Transylvania from Arctic Fox on my roots, and then a mixture of Aquamarine and their green color on my ends. And this went horribly, horribly wrong. The black dye from them was so potent that it turned all of my hair black, basically. Immediately after I got out of the shower, after rinsing it out, I was like, no, this is not what I want. This is such a depressing, dingy color, and I hate it. Eventually, it faded to a light enough shade where I felt like I could color it again. But I decided that I was going to bleach it again, because I was stupid. So I thought I could do another bleach bath to just try and get the last little bit of that color out so I could put a brighter green over top of it and have it be nice and vibrant. I think I used a 20 volume developer for this, so it wasn't even especially strong, especially since it was diluted with water and shampoo. But as I was applying it to my hair, I could feel my hair getting stretchy, which you do not want, because once it gets stretchy, it can keep stretching and break off. So as soon as I felt like my hair had been compromised, I rinsed it out before I even finished applying it to everything. And then I put more of Aurora and Juniper over top, and me and my green hair lived happily for quite a while. I ended up dyeing it this color, I think, one more time, and I just loved it. Like, it's seriously such a cheerful, happy color. Some really awful stuff happened in the months following this, but every time I looked in the mirror and I saw my bright, colorful hair, it gave me a little pick-me-up. So for once, I was happy with my hair, and then in December 2020, I made a coat, which was sort of a tealy emerald green color, and my hair needed a little vibrancy boost anyway, so I decided I'd use a mixture of Aquamarine and a green color from Arctic Fox to try and tint it to be a very similar color to the coat. And this is actually my favorite color my hair has ever been. It turned out such a pretty turquoisey color. I just adored it. I didn't really like working with the Arctic Fox dyes. I found them very thick and really hard to work into the hair, and to get the coverage I wanted, I felt like I had to use a lot of them. And then they were really difficult to get out, and it turned into like these little conditioner clumps that stuck to my bathtub and stained it, and the colors bled really, really badly. So I don't think I would use them again, but I do absolutely adore the color it turned my hair. I thought this was amazing. And then about a week ago, I decided it was time to bleach my roots because they'd grown out by about 2 inches, and I have some footage of that process. I feel like I should be more prepared for this given how many times I've done it now, but I'm not. I'm still very, very concerned. I gave myself a little bang trim the other day and realized that basically half of the length of my bangs were roots, and that's what has motivated this. I'm going to be using much smaller sections than the pieces I've tied out of the way. I've just sectioned out the top layer of the stuff I can't see and the bottom layer of the stuff I can't see, and then I have clips and a comb to get those into smaller sections. I cannot function with a mirror behind me and like doing it backwards. My brain just does not compute it. So I'm just going to be going by feel and hoping I get quite a bit of the back stuff without too much overlapping, and then everything else I will be pulling to the front as much as I can so I can see a bunch of it. And like I've been using for everything, I'm going to use Wella Color Charm lightener, and then I'm going to be using 20 volume this time around. I do also have some foil here, so I can put that underneath my bangs and paint the bleach on it without getting bleach on my face or in my eyes. Both those would be bad. Like all the tutorials tell you to, I started at the back of my head where the hair is the strongest, and I worked the bleach into my hair from the point where I bleached it previously towards the roots of my hair, leaving about a ½ inch gap between where the bleach ended and where the hair ended in my scalp, because the bleach will naturally work its way up the hair strand because of the heat in your scalp. And I was really worried that I was going to end up overlapping sections and I was going to have huge chunks of hair fall out, but it ended up turning out totally fine. The only issue I really ran into is that I applied it to my bangs last, and by that point I really needed to rinse it out for the rest of my hair because it had gotten so light, so my bangs didn't end up getting light enough. So it is day number 2 and this is what I'm working with. I feel like I got most of my roots. I might be missing a few spots, especially on the back of my head, which I can't see, but I'm not doing any more to it, so this is the palette we've ended up with. This morning I actually went through and bleached my bangs so they were a little bit brighter. I did my bangs last yesterday, so they processed for the least amount of time. In hindsight, I should have put the bleach on those parts and foiled them and then let everything process for like another 10 minutes, and then I think it would have been even. But I didn't, so I just touched that up this morning, left it on for about 5 minutes, and then I just washed my hair with the Andrew shampoo and didn't put any product in it. Because you want to have it clean hair for the dye to stick to. So what is currently on my hair is a mixture of Arctic Fox, Phantom Green, and Aquamarine, and I really like the color, but I don't think I have enough of this to do all of my roots, and also do a touch up on the ends. So I think I'm going to put a mixture of Aurora Green and Cerulean Sea on my roots, which are 2 Lunar Tides colors. Right now my hair is more bluish from the Aquamarine Aquamarine Arctic Fox stuff, so hopefully this will be a pretty good match for it, and then I can just lighten it and yellow it up a little bit with the Aurora Green. And I will report back when it's all on my head. Alright, so everything is applied. I don't know if you saw, but this is my Arctic Fox mixture and this was my Lunar Tides mixture. So I feel like I matched the colors pretty well. This might be a little bit more green, but this was going on my yellow roots, so I think it will hopefully all work out. I just mixed the Arctic Fox stuff with like 50% conditioner and put that over my ends and just massaged it all in after I'd done my roots with the Lunar Tide stuff. And now I'm going to mix what's left of my Arctic Fox mixture into the conditioner pot. And then what's left in here is just going to go back into the Lunar Tides bowl. I find with the Lunar Tide stuff, I use about 1 full container to do my roots and then another like half container to do the ends of my hair. With the Arctic Fox stuff, since it's so thick, I find I need a full like bottle of this to do my entire head. And even that doesn't necessarily feel like enough. I'm really not a big fan of the Arctic Fox consistency, but they do have some beautiful colors. So I'm going to clean up, leave this on my head with a cap over it for at least an hour, maybe like up to 2 hours, and then I will rinse it all out and hopefully a beautiful green hair. And this is how it turned out. I feel like the roots could be a slightly more bluish tone to match the ends, but I'm still really happy with it. I love having colorful hair so much. It doesn't work very well with the vintage and the historical aesthetic that I love so much, but it really does just make me happier. It's like having colorful or glittery fingernail polish. Like I just look down, I smile, and I look in the mirror and it's something to focus on even when I don't feel my best. So I'd absolutely 10 out of 10 recommend green hair. It really has made a positive impact on my life, and you never know, might make a positive impact on your life too. Before ending this video, I did just want to quickly talk a little bit about the condition of my hair. Before I started bleaching it, my hair was smooth enough that I didn't use conditioner because it just weighed my hair down too much and my hair didn't really need it since it was so far from being tangle prone. And now that I've bleached my hair, I'm definitely a lot more dependent on conditioner and a lot more dependent on leave-in conditioners too to prevent it from tangling. But my hair doesn't feel brittle. I haven't had a lot of breakage near the top or anything. It's been absolutely fine. I don't have chunks of hair falling out in the shower. My hair feels healthier than it did when I was using box dyes 10 years ago. I can see if you already have slightly troublesome or tangle prone hair that it could make it worse to a degree where it's difficult to manage. But for me, it's just made my hair feel a little bit drier and have a little bit more volume. The only downside is the terror that I feel every time I have to bleach my regrowth and the 20 minutes that I worry that all of my hair is going to fall out. But then I rinse it out and it's fine and I get to put some fun colors over it and then I feel much better. So I think it's worth the trade-off. And that is it for this very long video all about the adventures in getting my hair green. A color I didn't even really want my hair to be in the first place, but I've ended up really enjoying. And I hope you enjoyed this video, even though it is random. Usually this is where I would ask you to subscribe, but this is so different from any of my other content that you really shouldn't subscribe based off of this. But if you want to watch my other videos and subscribe based off of those, that would be great. Thank you so much for watching. I will talk to all of you very soon.